Welcome to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, the podcast for high achievers who want to stay sharp, focused, and full of energy despite their diagnosis. With your host, National Board Certified Functional Medicine Health Coach, Julie Michelson, where Julie helps you take your power back from autoimmunity. And now here's your host, Julie Michelson.
Welcome back to the Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast. I'm your host, Julie Michelson. And today I'm joined by Functional Diagnostic Nutrition Practitioner, Heather Gray, AKA the Lyme Boss. Heather considers herself a foundation coach. And in our conversation today, she shares countless tips that will help you increase your energy, reduce your brain fog, and improve your gut health. Heather, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I am really excited that you're here.
Yay.
I love starting off with asking about your story because most of us got into this world through a personal journey. So share with us, how did you become the Lyme Boss? How are you? How did you get into functional medicine, functional nutrition?
Oh, cool. Yeah. I start off almost every talk with, I was basically born constipated, right? So even at a very young age, I remember my feet falling asleep, sitting on the potty and my mom, dumping thick, nasty oils down my throat to help soften my stool. But even at the time, nobody was trying to figure out why this 4-year-old was so constipated. Around the same time, my uncle had killed himself. And it was a pretty dark, traumatic time in my family. And shortly after that, I developed some other stomach issues, behavioral stuff, and then fast forward, when I was 13 and actually got bit by a tick and developed Lyme disease, started getting symptoms from that about 2 years later with my first stint in the psych ward for trying to kill myself. And, again, I got pills shoved down my throat, patted on the head, was told I was attention seeking, and sent on my way. Nobody was digging deeper on why this, 15-year-old was trying to take herself out. There was a lot of early childhood trauma. And I also found out that I had undiagnosed celiac disease. So you fast forward even more time. So 27 years, go by. 2013, I finally got diagnosed with Lyme disease, celiac, Hashimoto's, endometriosis. And, I was going to go the traditional route for the Lyme disease stuff because I really didn't know any better. And all they were doing was kind of killing, throwing napalm at me, trying to kill the critters, but they never took into account the host, right? What shape was the host in? And I was in horrible shape. I had been chronically ill for decades, right? There was no way I could handle that kind of, onslaught war. And it's a couple weeks after I started treatment and thought I was going to die, I actually heard the founder of Reed Davis, he's the founder of FDN, Functional Diagnostic Nutrition, speak on, you have to heal the gut, right? Lower inflammation, open the detox pathways, are your hormones balanced, all these things that nobody has ever looked into for me. And I thought, oh my God, that makes total sense. Yes, sign me up. And at the time, when you go through the program, you can go through the program. Well, back then you had a choice on whether you could go through it to be a practitioner or to go through it just to look for your own health stuff. And now it is definitely more practitioner guided or centered. But at the time I was a hairstylist for 15 years and my body was starting to break down. I couldn't even hold a fork to feed myself because the pain in my wrist and my hand was so bad. So it was kind of like a double gift because I knew I've always had a propensity for the natural alternative. I loved studying herbal stuff when I was younger. So the thought of having a new career and, figuring out what was wrong with me, just seemed amazing. So that is, between that in a nutshell is, how I got into the functional world for sure.
Amazing. And you're well now?
Yeah, with chronic Lyme, and if you've had mold issues and I've looked deeper into my genetics, and I don't detox properly, there are things in place that I constantly have to do. My self-care is out of this world. Like this morning, I was sweating in my sauna bed, and I have to take the time out. I think it was probably one of the gifts of this disease, because a lot of us, especially moms working, entrepreneur, like,
Hello. Sorry about that.
and as caregivers, we have a tendency to give, and never filling our own cup. And if anything, it's taught me to slow down and to fill my own cup up first, because I very easily can go out of remission. And I have a couple times when I've decided to get off my path and I wasn't eating right for my body. I, was up too late, was, drinking too much alcohol, so yes. And, this last stint that I had with the Rona, back in February, caused some kind of long haulers type symptoms that I've been dealing with. Massive fatigue and brain fog again, which sucked because I really had that brain fog kind of, gone. And so it's really, it's amazing when your brain works normally, and then it starts to, you can feel it start to kind of, slip away from you again. It's a scary feeling. But I'm starting to get that under control. I've got a new treatment that I just recently started, but it's been kind of kicking my butt. So kind of going through some Herx responses again. Like yesterday, I felt like that's all I did was sleep, which it was insane. But feeling so much better today. So it's obviously what my body needed. So to answer your question, like 80% of the time I'm doing so much better. And then there are a few other times I have to, dial in and keep digging and peeling those layers back.
Yeah. Wow. And thank you for sharing your full story with us. And it is a journey. It's always a journey. Those of us that have, lived with chronic illness, I think all know, it's like, you're never there. You can feel great, but like you said, it takes, you're proactive. You mentioned self-care and filling your cup, and is that where you start with clients when you're working with them? Or obviously you're very in tune to your body, and so what I'm hearing is like you shift. If you feel something going in a direction you don't like, you make a change.
Right. No, absolutely. And I, even built into my online course some traumatic experiencing exercises. So SE, because that was a huge part of my healing journey over in this last year and a half that I figured out, because I kind of went back off the wagon a couple years ago, and was really angry, had gained a bunch of weight, was back being painful, was reactive, and had gotten to a fight with my husband. And he kind of looked at me and was like, I'm not going to be married to an angry person anymore. He's like, I don't know what's going on with you, but, let's figure this out. And even back in 2013, when I started the Lyme disease and went through the program, I've always focused on the physical. Right. And I've never addressed the hidden trauma that was in my nervous system, hidden trauma from my uncle killing himself when I was 4, the hidden trauma from massive abuse from, alcoholic and drug addicts that I was, raised by, trauma from having mold and Lyme in my brain for decades. So there's all kinds of things that can cause trauma. And so basically for me, the gas was stuck on. There was always a tiger chasing me. And if you can't get that nervous system calm down, right, you don't digest properly. You can't heal or, have lasting healing. And so that was another piece that, so I kind of call myself like the foundation coach, because it frustrates me so badly, especially all these poor people with Lyme. And I see them on all the groups and they talk, oh, treatment. What treatment did you get? Treatment. It's like, no, start with the foundations, because even the best treatment in the whole wide world, if you're going to eat McDonald's, right, and inflame your gut and inflame your brain, if you're going to get 3 hours of sleep at night, if you're going to drink alcohol, like if your mindset's not correct, if you're too much trauma in your nervous system, all the treatment in the world is only going to get you that far. And if it does get you there, you're going to end up in remission. out of remission. So got to get those foundations down.
And so let's go there. What are the foundations? Although before you jump into that, I want to highlight, because I love that you brought up this difference between we can feel better and not be truly healed. And so for lasting healing, we do need to activate that parasympathetic system and allow our body to truly heal. We can eliminate symptoms, which is a good thing, because sometimes, but not some, it's always a process. And so depending on the order, but when you're talking about foundations, I heard, food, sleep, but I don't want to put words in your mouth. I know what I think of. What are you focusing on?
So the FDN has what they call a dress for success model, and it's diet, rest, exercise, stress reduction, and supplementation. The supplementation being the last thing, because it's just, a lot like when people focus too much on treatment. Supplementation can be great to help calm some of those symptoms down while you're trying to get to the root cause. But a lot of folks I found, even in the functional world, sadly, will just put Band-Aids on folks with supplements, right? It's more natural than they do the prescriptions, but they've never even digging down deeper of kind of getting why this person needs these to begin with. And so diet is, absolutely key. Rest. It's amazing to me how many people aren't sleeping at night. And like when it never ceases to amaze me when I'm in an intake form. And that's not even like a number one main complaint of theirs. Like it'll come out a few days later. Oh, and I don't sleep at night. And I'm just like, wait, why isn't that one of your main complaints? Like sleep is just, I don't function at all anymore if I don't get the right amount of sleep. So I'm in awe of folks who weren't sleeping and functioning.
Isn't that a common symptom for people with Lyme's disease and the insomnia?
Oh, absolutely. I thank God never had that as an issue. Mine was the opposite. I had like extreme adrenal fatigue. So even if I slept 12 hours, I would wake up in the morning in tears because it felt like I only slept 2 hours. But I never had a problem with falling asleep and getting to sleep. Like I'm seriously one of those people that I could sit here in my chair right now, close my eyes, and I'd be out in like a minute.
Wow.
I'm blessed in that way. So exercise, believe it or not, like the first thing that I do when I start working with folks, and my runners and my CrossFit people, they are so sad and they get so mad at me because I tell them you've got to chill out. A stress on the body is stress on the body, whether it's good stress or bad stress. And if you've got chronic health issues, right, the whole name of the game is to lower the amount of stress on your body so it can heal. And so, I tell them for like the next 3 months while we're working together, you can walk, you can do yoga, you can do light weight training, but that's kind of where I need you to live. And it's amazing to me, women who've been trying to lose weight, and so they kick up their exercise even more, and it seems so counterproductive. And then I tell them to slow down and cut back, and then boom, 5 pounds comes off. Like it never fails. So exercise, stress reduction, that's where the somatic experiencing work that I teach, some meditation, some breath work, right? Because it was always frustrating to me. You'd go to the doctor and the doctor would say, you need to lower your stress and eat better. But they wouldn't, give you any tools to do that. It's like, you walk out and you're like, okay, what does that mean?
Right.
So that's the part of coaching that I love, is because I actually get to, hold somebody's hand and walk with them while they're on this journey. Because a lot of us weren't brought up, right, to understand what actual real food is. Like when I was a kid, this is a part of a balanced breakfast, BS. That's actually like diabetes in the making is what that was. It was sugary cereal with orange juice and a piece of fruit and a piece of toast. Like it, so a lot of folks, including myself up until just, very few years ago, I remember giving my kid, mac and cheese and Kool-Aid and hot dogs for lunch and didn't think anything of it. And now I look back at it and go, oh my God, what was I doing?
And we say we do the best we can with the knowledge we have at the time.
Amen. That's part of the reason why I like doing stuff like this is, if I can plant one little seed for somebody that they take a look at what they're doing in their life right now and go, oh, maybe this is contributing to the way I'm feeling or my mental health issues, then then all my suffering has been, not in vain.
I love that. It's always one of my favorite things when a parent is working with me and they reach that point. They're like, oh, why am I, when they really get that understanding of food and nutrition, and then they realize, like, why am I feeding my kid terrible things while I eat the healthy, good thing, real food? And that click of like, oh, now the whole family can actually eat well. And that's such a rewarding piece of it. Is, I always say, the ripple effect. I don't know, when people learn, because you can't unlearn, like, once you realize how wrong we were doing it, like, you can't go back.
No, I used to say that quite often, because this world is not set up for a healthy mental and physical health. It's not. And it can feel so isolating sometimes. And I have to constantly think about food prep. And if I'm out of the house, what am I going to make? What can I bring with me? Where can I get food? Where can I get clean water? It can get kind of exhausting sometimes. And I get frustrated. I'm human, and sometimes I wish I could just go on a whim and I'm going to meet you at the restaurant and have, hors d'oeuvres or, and a drink, but I can't. And that's okay, because I actually function so much better than most people I know, even that don't have haven't had a history of chronic disease.
Sure.
So I'm grateful for that it is frustrating and can feel isolating, because this world is just not set up for a healthy lifestyle.
No, and the hope is, this is why we're doing this, right? That we will make a contribution to that change and things will correct. I mean, and they actually have to. It's just a matter of, whose lifetime it's going to be in.
Hopefully it's ours. I would love to see.
I hope so. It would be so good. I want to highlight, because this is such a passion point for me as well. And whether it's Lyme, autoimmune, often it's both. This idea of over exercising. It's finding that proper level of, I use the word movement, I don't even use the word exercise, but finding that level. And it's true, it's a process to get people to understand that when they're over exercising. And over exercising, depending on where you are for your health, it may be going for too long of a walk. Like, it just depends on, if you're exercising and your symptoms are getting worse, or you feel like
eating afterwards. Yeah.
That idea, that's another like training we have, right? Of like, oh, I'm hurting from yesterday's workout. It must have been a great workout. Maybe not so much.
Feel the burn.
And so people don't realize that, I love the saying, first of all, you can't over exercise your way out of a bad diet.
Yep.
But also, that often, and I went through it when I was declining with autoimmunity. It's like, I was like, no, it's not going to take this from me. I'm going to keep exercising. And so I think that plays into it when people are, they may have no energy for anything else, but they're pushing themselves. And, especially where we live, CrossFit's huge. Where, I lived in Boulder County for years, where they say, everybody in Boulder County is training for something, it's not exercising, they're training. It's I don't know. So I love that you brought that up. And I wanted to highlight that for listeners to really consider, like, what is that proper level of exercise for you?
Absolutely. My husband lost 65 pounds and I lost 45 by walking.
Yeah.
Actually, testing.
Today, the ranch.
Getting my hormones balanced, but it wasn't by cranking up the time in the gym, is how we lost weight. It was actually the exact opposite. So I know it seems counterproductive, but trust us, we know what we're doing.
It is so true. So I know one of your big, and maybe we're just going back to what we were already discussing, but you're all about, you have 5 tips that help people, increase their energy, reduce their brain fog, I think reduce their pain as well. and gut issues, right? Because your story starts with gut issues.
Absolutely.
So let's see. I don't know if we'll get through all 5, but and maybe that was them. But where are the tips in there for people?
So I love testing for food sensitivities is part of it. We call it low hanging fruit in the industry, because a lot of, like, for me, it was pork, it was coconut, it was almonds, right? So I was going on a keto diet and gaining weight and getting more angry and inflamed. And I found out that I was reacting to almonds, coconuts, olives, and pork. And that was like a staple for my keto diet. So it was a no wonder. I've seen, like, people, migraines that they've been dealing with daily. I mean, I've seen so many amazing things happen by just eliminating food sensitivities to start off with. So that would be like number 1. 2, make sure you go into bed on time. We say that really optimal health for sleep is, between 10 p.m. and like 4 a.m. So every time you stay up later past 10 p.m., I meant, your body is actually missing out on crucial things to detox and functions that only happen when you're asleep. So that's a huge one. I have some people, I have to really start them off slow on that one. It's like they're up till midnight, and I'm like, all right, well, try to go to bed at 11:30 this week, right? And then next week, try to get to bed at 11, right? Because if you try to take somebody who's normally going to bed at midnight and try to get them to bed at 10, they're going to lay there thinking about how pissed off they are at you. So sleep. So 1, 2, making sure that you're hydrated, right? They say you should be drinking half your body weight in ounces of water a day. And there's so many people who are so chronically dehydrated, it's ridiculous. And then also constipated. And so that would be another one, is to make sure that you're, the 3 Ps, right? Pooping, peeing, perspiring. Yeah,
Love that.
probably more than 5 now from the total of this talk.
Yeah, for sure. I know I'm always talking poop with my clients. It's so important.
It's so important.
And I love that you brought up it's here, and this is why these are foundational things. I love that you brought up drinking enough water. It is such a common problem. And often when you go to the doctor, they don't ask you how much water you drink, right? Or if you drink water.
Even what kind of water you're drinking, because like our city water is fluorinated and chlorine is absolutely horrible for your gut bacteria, and chlorine's really horrible for your thyroid as well. So anybody who's got issues with their thyroid have been diagnosed with Hashimoto's. Put a shower filter on your shower and make sure you're drinking filtered water, because that chlorine is absolutely horrible for it.
Yeah. And I love that you added the shower filter. So it's not just what you're drinking, our skin absorbs. And so I was so excited when I built the house that I'm in now that we were able to put in a whole house water filter. It's my favorite thing in the world. It's just so good. I'm not sure I could live without one again ever, that I've had one.
My favorite is a gift from my husband was Valentine's Day, when he bought me my first Berkey, my first water filtration system. I've upgraded since then, but I was just like, that's my favorite gift ever.
Yeah.
What a dork I am. There was a girl I worked with on the ranch, and I gave her, she was out of water, and I gave her some of my water. And she came back to me the next day and said, what was in that water that you gave me? I'm like, why? And she's like, I had more energy, and I just couldn't believe it. I'm like, well, because your cells are hydrated for the first time in their life. It's more like what's not in that
water.
Right.
Right. I love that. That is amazing. I've heard you talk about eating grain-free. Do you think everybody should be grain-free, or?
There is a caveat to that. So if you're going to I love Weston A. Price, and actually Weston A. Price was my first kind of intro into the alternative health, nutrition world. And he was a dentist back in the 1930s who were traveling the world and seeing these indigenous folks of the area, and how their mouths within one generation were just completely getting trashed with the introduction of like the standard American diet. And, so if you're going to take the time to soak and sprout and prepare your grains properly, absolutely go eat grains. There are some health benefits to it, fiber. I personally haven't found too many people who want to take the time to prepare grains properly. So that's why I put them on a paleo diet. And even they're finding, even in organic grains, they can still be high in mold. They can still be high in, other things that aren't really great for you. And if you think about it, even an organic piece of bread, it's still processed food, right? You have to do things to that, product to get it to be this product. And I'm more of a proponent of whole real foods, right? In their natural forms. So yeah, I am more of a paleo type diet, but if you are going to eat grains, the only way that you really should is if you're sprouting and soaking. So that way your body can actually absorb them properly and they're not leading to leaky gut.
I love that. I always find that it does seem that even people that seem to tolerate grains well do better grain-free, for sure.
Oh, absolutely.
And so is that something so I know you said you do food sensitivity panels right away with your clients. You're combining, it sounds like. Yeah, I do
put
the same.
everybody on
We
the
do the same.
paleo diet, minus their food sensitivities. And then I teach them how to rotate, because until their gut is healed, if you're eating the same foods over and over and over again, you're going to create new food sensitivities. So, yeah.
I love that. I love the, I always joke, I've gentled the longer I've been coaching. And so I try to, like, the one no I say for anybody with autoimmune or Lyme or toxicity issues without an autoimmune diagnosis, or that is, absolutely gluten-free across the board.
Absolutely. Yeah. Especially if you've been diagnosed with an autoimmune disease, like wheat and gluten are one of the number one contributors to autoimmune disease out there. So yeah, absolutely. Everybody. Absolutely. I've been doing a lot of dairy and corn and grain zoomers as well. And I'm seeing how they all kind of interact. And there's some molecular mimicry that goes on with like wheat and dairy and corn. Yeah. And so all my autoimmune folks, that's the three big bads, as we call them. And I take people off of those automatically.
Yeah. It was always interesting to me because we didn't learn a lot about corn in the various schools I went to. But I found time and time again, so many people, this was before I was using food sensitivity panels, but even without them, so many people upon reintroduction, corn was such a huge issue that it rose. It was, same with you, it was gluten, dairy, and corn, because almost every time.
Yeah. I was shocked when I got my corn zoomer back, and I was actually almost reacting to it just as badly as wheat. And the Mexican that's in, part of me was deeply crushed. But, if you think about it, what do we feed corn to typically? We feed it to animals to fatten them up faster. So it's just, there's not a whole lot of.
And we feed it to animals that shouldn't be eating corn, but that's a whole different episode.
Yeah, no, trust me, I grew up in Greeley in the agricultural area, and I go talking like I talk now back, and it just, their heads explode. I'm like, cows, 4 stomachs, none of them were meant to break down corn. They are not supposed to eat corn.
Yeah. Salmon isn't supposed to eat corn either.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm not sure. Especially, maybe, the ancient corn back of our ancestors, might be a completely different story, but we've like everything else, we've changed and bastardized it. Sure. Where our bodies are like, what the hell is that?
Yeah, it is so true. So we covered a lot, and you already gave a lot of tips. And oftentimes my guests struggle with this question, but I always ask you to pick one. Sometimes people bring in a whole new one. But if listeners want to just start one thing today, like what is one step that they could take immediately to start to move the needle on their health?
Go paleo.
That's
You
That's
said
a big step.
you said
Like,
you can't,
okay. Yeah.
I mean, but it's free. You don't need
Yeah.
a person to help with that. Like that's something you absolutely could implement today, and you could implement it in tiny steps. Start
Yeah.
say this week you're going to cut out wheat, and then next week you'll cut out dairy, and then the next week, there's ways to do it, and within a month or two you can be completely paleo.
Yeah.
But you had talked about you can't exercise your way out of a bad diet.
So true.
You can't supplement your way out of a bad diet. Like diet is foundation. So absolutely, that's like my number one. Go paleo.
I love that. You're speaking my language. And no, for listeners that are like, this is the stuff Julie always talks about. I didn't. Heather's not a plant.
No, if you go to my website, I've got YouTube. I'm ranting about it all the time. I just got done ranting about, there's this new shake place in town. And it's supposed to be healthy shakes, right? I walk in and it's all Herbalife. It's soy, corn, grain, and they're touting themselves as freaking healthy. And like the word nutrition is up on their sign. And I thought my freaking head was going to explode. I was so pissed when I left there. I'm like, that is not healthy.
Wow. Well, I'll have to check it out so that my head can explode as well.
Maybe we'll have to just sit out there with some picking signs and just saying truth in advertising, right? Truth in advertising.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Well, and this is where we all need to be our own advocate. And it's like using the word healthy or all natural on the front of a label. It's the marketing, and you've got to take the time to actually see what's in stuff. So that's another tip, everybody.
If you don't recognize an ingredient, look it up. You'll be shocked.
Don't be fooled. Where, for people that listen like I do on the go, and aren't going to click links in the show notes, where's the best place to find you? People are like, wow, I have to check out more. Where can they go?
I got a lot of great videos on YouTube. So Discovering Health FDN, Frank Dog Nancy on YouTube is a great place. Or if you have Lyme disease and are needing support, I've got a Lyme Boss Unraveling the Secrets of Lyme Disease. I've got a support group for Lyme folks on Facebook. So those would be the two places that I would start.
Wonderful. Heather, thank you so much. You have shared amazing gold and given listeners more than 5 tips to get started on their health journey.
Yay. Thanks for having me again. I'm glad we were able to do this.
Me too. For everyone listening, remember you can get the show notes and transcripts by visiting inspiredliving.show. I hope you had a great time and enjoyed this episode as much as I did. I'll see you next week.
Thank you for listening to Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity. Did you enjoy this episode? Please like, share, and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. If you'd like to get a transcript of this and every other episode, just head on over to inspiredliving.show or click on the link in this episode's description. There, you can also find everything we discussed in this episode, including links and information about our guest. You can even send in your questions to be answered by Julie in a future episode. That's inspiredliving.show. Until next time, this is Julie Michelson's Inspired Living with Autoimmunity podcast, helping you take your power back.